Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
Israeli Foreign Minister Sylvain Shalom will be visiting Mauritania tomorrow. Meanwhile, an anti-Israel demonstration was organized in the capital Nouakchott. There was graffiti on the walls condemning Shalom's visit and denouncing the policies of Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon. Security forces were deployed in different parts of the Mauritanian capital.
Mauritanians are denouncing Israeli Foreign Minister Sylvain Shalom's visit to their country. Some believe it is a natural development in the political process of the Middle East. Others feel it does not respect the feelings of the Mauritanian people.
We fully oppose this miserable visit by the foreign minister, and I won't say of Israel, because we don't recognize it, and we refuse to deal with this issue of the 1967 borders.
The political current is represented by the Islamic movement, the historic opponent to normalization with Israel, who deems this as a free media campaign in favor of Israel. In the meantime, the security forces arrested the movement's leaders, accusing them of incitement. A number of opposition parties and movements against normalizing ties denounced the visit, calling for massive demonstrations to express the Mauritanian rejection to it.
We denounce and oppose the announced visit of the foreign minister of this entity to our country because it is not justified. The government is not obligated to invite such an official at this time.
Israel's embassy has been established in the capital of Nouakchott for the past 5 years. Business there is going as usual, but with extreme caution due to threats requiring increased security. From behind the massive security blocks, the new ambassador has prepared for this important visit.
This visit is part of steps to revive the peace process, which we are seeing now. A foreign minister's visit is always important, especially when the issue involves two countries, such as Mauritania and Israel, who have excellent ties. This visit highlights the understanding between the two countries.
Regardless of the opposition to the Israeli visitor, the authorities in Nouakchott are sending a message to people, saying that Nouakchott has gathered its courage to exclusively deal with Israel. But will the issue only surround joint relations, or will it open the door to normalizing ties with other Arab countries? These questions are being asked by analysts of North African affairs. Mohammed Fadel, Abu Dhabi TV, Nouakchott.
In response to the Israeli killing of a Palestinian activist inside a village near Tulkarem, the Palestinian president said that the operation violates all agreements that they have reached. Meanwhile, the Islamic Jihad movement launched missiles toward Historot settlement, avenging the death of their martyr, but no damages were reported. Large numbers of Israeli forces supported by a helicopter raided inside the village and enforced a curfew, killing one Palestinian man and injuring a child. One Israeli soldier was killed and another was injured during the operation.
Mothers crying and mourning as more Palestinian blood is being shed. This image has become all too familiar. This martyr is not the first one killed during the new Israeli aggression, and most likely he will not be the last one. His assassination is another indication that Israel has the intention to kill the ceasefire agreement by escalating the situation in the West Bank all over again. Israel did not hesitate from attacking Saida village near Tulkarem after withdrawing from it. The pretext that was used by Israel is the need to arrest 2 Palestinians. Israeli forces exchanged fire with them and opened fire towards a group of children as they were withdrawing and leaving behind one of the wanted Palestinians dead. One Israeli soldier was killed and another was injured.
They were shooting at the children everywhere and hit a child in his leg, who was transported to the hospital. The martyr was Shafiq Abdel Ghani, who was also the brother of another martyr.
The Israeli operation outraged the Palestinians, especially the Islamic Jihad movement, which the martyr belonged to. The movement threatened to retaliate, and the retaliation came quickly. They launched 3 missiles towards Histarot settlements and said that they are determined to go forward with the resistance to counter the Israeli attacks. The Islamic Jihad movement said that the ceasefire may have been a trap prepared for the Palestinians to prevent them from retaliating. It now appears clear that this operation has shown that the ceasefire is becoming weaker day by day. Israel insists on ignoring the ceasefire, and the factions threaten to withdraw from it. But Abu Mazen makes all efforts to maintain the ceasefire. On one side, he is calling on the Palestinian factions to stay calm and exert restraint. And on the other side, he's calling on Israel to honor the calm, condemning its violations of its commitments and escaping from its pledge to withdraw from the Palestinian cities.
These aggressions are unacceptable. Supposedly, Israel and the Israeli army withdrew from Tulkarem, and they cannot return to it again.
It appears that things are not going the way that Abu Mazen had hoped for. The Israeli operations come at a time when there is an atmosphere of tension between the Palestinian Authority and the factions, especially since Abbas recently ordered the Palestinian forces to use an iron fist to prevent any violations of the calm. His pledge to ban patrols by the factions in the streets of Gaza drew the anger of these factions, especially Hamas. Now, the assassination operation of the Palestinian activists comes as a clear message to the factions that Israel will not commit to the ceasefire. Israel's withdrawal from the city of Tulkarem does not prevent it from raiding the city, assassinating Palestinian activists, and earlier arresting a young man claiming that he was planning to carry out an attack against Israel. These developments have put the Palestinian president in an awkward position, making it even harder to perform the difficult task of controlling the factions. It's likely that the factions will not compromise on giving up their weapons, even if it meant that the ceasefire would be broken, which means that what Abbas has built during his presidency could collapse at any moment, obviously as a result of the Israeli aggressions.
Right-wing Israeli cabinet member Natan Sharansky resigned in protest at Prime Minister Ariel Sharon's planned withdrawal from Gaza, a sign of widening internal rifts ahead of the pullout. Dana Abu Sham has the details.
It was a busy day in the Palestinian lands and Israel. Turkish Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan showed support for Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas in his efforts to maintain and control the Palestinian Authority. He told reporters in Ramallah following a meeting with Abbas that he had asked Israel to give the Palestinian leader a chance to control the situation on the ground. Erdogan posed the question that if Abbas is not supported, how can he control given the minimum capabilities? Abbas meanwhile told reporters that there was an agreement between the Palestinians and Israelis on Turkey's essential role. Middle East peacemaker hopeful Turkey has tried through Erdogan to forge closer ties with the Arab world without altering its traditional pro-Western orientation. Erdogan hosted Arab foreign ministers in Istanbul over the weekend, before he started his landmark tour by holding crucial talks with Israeli leaders yesterday and early today. Prior to his meeting with Abbas, Erdogan toured Haram al-Sharif in occupied Jerusalem before laying a wreath at the grave of late Palestinian President Yasser Arafat. Turkey is one of the few nations in the region to enjoy cordial ties with both Israel and the Palestinians, as well as with Syria and Iran. Also today, U.S. envoy and outgoing World Bank chief James Wolfenson held talks with Israeli Foreign Minister Sylvan Shalom. They discussed rebuilding the Palestinian economy following the planned Israeli pullout from Gaza and parts of the West Bank.
We believe that we should work together in order to coordinate with the Palestinians the implementation of the disengagement plan, and at the same time we should work very close in order to help the Palestinians to rebuild Gaza and to rebuild the Palestinian economy. I think it's very important for the Palestinian people, even that we have, of course, some demands from the Palestinian Authority, from the Palestinian leadership.
Very anxious to contribute to what you want, which is a secure peace, and our task is to work with you and with your Palestinian colleagues to develop the economic and social activities in the Palestinian territories in Gaza and parts of the West Bank, and in so doing make security more likely.
Earlier, Wolfenson met with Israeli Defense Minister Shaul Mofaz. Wolfenson, who is tasked with aiding both Israelis and Palestinians in an upcoming Israeli evacuation from the Gaza Strip, arrived in the region for 3 days of talks with both sides. Yesterday, he met with the Palestinians. He has a mandate to focus on economic development in the territories and enlist international economic support to rebuild the Palestinian economy. Meanwhile, and in a blow to Sharon's disengagement plan, right-wing Israeli politician Natan Sharansky resigned his cabinet post in protest at Israel's planned withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. In the weekly cabinet meeting, Sharon praised Sharansky for his performance as a minister, saying that he did much in the global fight against anti-Semitism. Giving up his government portfolio effectively puts Sharansky out of Israeli politics, as he has no seat in the Knesset parliament. The resignation is the latest of several ideological walkouts from the Israeli government.
On the ground, it was a violent day in the Palestinian lands. One Palestinian was killed and another injured by Israeli fire during an Israeli military incursion into the West Bank city of Tulkarem. An Israeli soldier was also killed by Palestinians in the pre-dawn raid, while another was wounded. Backed by military tanks and armored vehicles, occupation forces stormed into the town of Saida, north of Tulkarem, and opened heavy fire on civilians' houses. The troops shot and killed 37-year-old Shafiq Abdel Ghani, a member of the Islamic Jihad movement. Occupation troops also conducted house searches and imposed a curfew on the town. As Jihad Islamic movement retaliated by firing 3 rockets towards the Israeli town of Sderot near the Gaza Strip. The rockets landed in an empty field and caused no casualties or damage. Also in Tulkarem, a Palestinian photographer was injured by Israeli fire. Faris, who works for the Palestinian news agency Ramtan, was shot in the legs while on duty. The Palestinian Authority condemned the Israeli army's pre-dawn raid as a violation of trust-building measures agreed by Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon in Sharm el-Sheikh. Israeli Deputy Premier Ehud Olmert also voiced concern that the unrest could set back the ceasefire.
It will not set back the ceasefire. It only proves again how sensitive and volatile and insecure the situation is, and how much all of us must do in order to make sure that the ceasefire and end of violence will continue.
Scores of people are killed, including a British soldier, in the latest bout of the violence across Iraq. 3 car bombs went off in the capital, Baghdad, putting pressure on a new cabinet that has vowed to stabilize the country. In addition to violence and suicide car bombings, militants in the country are continuing with their campaign of hostage-taking. Meanwhile, U.S. Army reservist Lindy England, best known for her pictures holding a naked Iraqi on a leash in the Abu Ghraib prison scandal, pleaded guilty to 7 charges of abuse. Samir Jamil has the details on the latest in Iraq.
The 3 blasts targeted an Interior Ministry official, policemen, and a busy shopping district. The first bomb exploded in the Hariri district of northwest Baghdad as a small convoy of vehicles carrying Major General Fulayh Rashid, the head of a police commando unit linked to the Interior Ministry, was passing. Rashid and 3 of his bodyguards were wounded. The second car bomb exploded in Karrada, a busy neighborhood in the south of the capital. Police said at least 6 passers-by were killed and 12 people were wounded by the bomb, which devastated a row of shops and set a 5-story apartment building on fire. U.S. and Iraqi forces blocked off the area. A third blast hit the Zayuna district of Baghdad, killing 2 policemen and wounding 10 people. The blast took place close to the Ministry of Culture and the visa section of the Interior Ministry. It set several cars on fire and damaged shops nearby. In the northern city of Mosul, 2 suicide bombers blew themselves up, killing a child and wounding 15 people. In more insurgent attacks elsewhere, a British soldier was killed in a combat. But Britain's Ministry of Defense gave no details on the incident. Apart from suicide car bombings, militants have also kept up a campaign of hostage-taking. An Australian hostage flanked by masked gunmen pleaded for his life in a tape released yesterday. The man, identified as Douglas Wood, who lives in California, appealed to the United States, Britain and Australia to pull their troops out of Iraq.
President Bush, Prime Minister Howard, Governor Schwarzenegger, family, friends, please help take the American troops, the Australian troops, the British troops out of here and let Iraq look after itself.
However, Australian Prime Minister John Howard said he would send an emergency response team to Iraq in a bid to free the hostage, but would not withdraw his country's troops.
We'll continue to do all we can consistent with our position on not giving in to hostage takers, and we can't alter that position and we won't alter that position. We can't have the foreign policy of this country dictated by terrorists, but we've got to do everything we can nonetheless to assist this poor man. It's a reminder of the brutality and the ruthlessness of the group we're dealing with.
The Australian was the latest of more than 150 foreigners taken captive in Iraq over the past year. Iraqi officials estimate that attacks have killed about 100 people and wounded more than 150 since Thursday, when the first elected government in 50 years was formed. The violence included more than 15 car bombings in Baghdad and dozens of attacks elsewhere. Meanwhile, U.S. Army reservist Lynn England, who was shown holding a naked Iraqi on a leash at Abu Ghraib prison, will hear her sentence this week. 22-year-old England became the face of the Iraqi prisoner abuse scandal by posing in some of the most inflammatory photos from the prison, which embarrassed the military and touched off an international furor. Faced with overwhelming evidence because of the photos, England pleaded guilty today to 7 of 9 charges before a Fort Hood, Texas military court. Her lawyer said she could face a maximum sentence of 11 years. Samir Jamil, Jordan Television.
Son of slain Prime Minister Rafik Hariri, Saad al-Din Hariri and Maronite Patriarch Cardinal Nasrallah Boutros-Fer agreed in a telephone call to avoid falling into a, quote, trap of delaying legislative elections set for next month to avert a constitutional vote in Lebanon. Hariri, who is in Washington, told Sfer, who is in France, he would continue his father's policies of rejecting sectarianism and pledged to work for the unity of the political forces that expressed the will of the Lebanese following the late leader's assassination. In Lebanon, Progressive Socialist Party chief and opposition leader MP Walid Jumblat accused President Emil Lahoud of instigating sectarian tensions to protect himself and the head of his presidential elite guards, Mustafa Hamdan, from an international commission investigation into Hariri's assassination. Muharid Fakir has the latest developments.
Jumblat told delegations at his Mount Lebanon town in Mukhtara, remnants of the military regime have been using specific media outlets to prove sectarian divisions, and made clear that it was a big mistake not to dismiss President Lahoud from power in the aftermath of countrywide demonstrations that followed Hariri's murder. He questioned why the staunchly pro-Syrian Lahoud, quote, all of a sudden remembered he was a Christian. Lahoud's family and closest aides have been calling for a new session in Parliament to discuss the electoral law that will govern next month's legislative polls, claiming the 2000 law targeted the Christians.
House Speaker Nabi Hariri had denied allegations that he acted on Syrian orders to derail a meeting of the joint committees last week, which was supposed to discuss proposed electoral laws. A lack of quorum torpedoed the meeting. It was the final constitutional deadline for an agreement on a new electoral law, so May elections will have to be held under the 2000 law. There was finger-pointing from all sides. MPs were supposed to discuss a law proposed by the previous government and supported by the opposition to divide Lebanon into the smallest possible voting districts. MPs were also set to debate other draft laws, including proposals advocating larger constituencies with proportional representation. Christian opposition factions wanted the Qada, the smallest possible district, especially exiled opposition leader General Michel Aoun. But at this point, any move to adopt a new law would push back elections by about 6 months, amid strong international pressure for the polls to take place on schedule, following Syria's military pullout after a 29-year presence. Lebanon's new government had won a vote of confidence in parliament and immediately called the elections, the first without a Syrian presence. The polls will be held in 4 rounds, starting in Beirut on May 29th and stretch into June 19th. The anti-Syrian opposition is keen for the election, which they expect to give them a majority in the House, now dominated by Damascus's allies, to take place on time. But Deputy Speaker Michel El-Mour, whose son is the defense minister and son-in-law of President Emil Lahoud, all of them staunchly pro-Syrian, were accused of triggering the latest controversy after Moore chaired the joint committee's meeting that never took place. He proposed holding an extraordinary session on Wednesday to discuss a new law and hinted a call for elections will not be signed by Lahoud, who was accused by the opposition of throwing Lebanon into its political crisis after Syria forced a constitutional amendment to keep him in power last September. There was a coordinated effort by Lahoud's family and what the opposition said were remnants of the Syrian-backed military regime to delay the polls. The Kurnet Shehwan opposition front, a gathering of Christian MPs and figures, criticized the 2000 law and rejected it, but made clear it will take part in the ballots. Opposition MP Boutros Harib urged Speaker Berry to hold an urgent session to agree on the law and criticize the current legislation. Prime Minister Mikati had said he supported holding a special session to discuss the division of Lebanon into smaller districts. Opposition leader General Aoun, who ends his Paris exile on Saturday, was critical of the law ahead of his return.
Egyptian police have detained 200 people of questioning over 2 attacks on foreign tourists in Cairo and are hunting for the brother of one of the attackers. Security sources said police rounded up the people in the working-class Cairo district of Shubra Khameya, home to a man and 2 women who killed themselves and wounded 4 foreigners in 2 separate attacks on tourists yesterday. The authorities were investigating whether they were more members of a group which they said was behind Saturday's attacks in an April 7th attack which killed 3 tourists and a bomber in a Cairo bazaar. Tourism Minister Ahmad al-Mugharibi said an Israeli couple wounded by the nail bomb were in decent condition. Officials said a wounded Italian woman had left for Italy and the 3 Egyptians left hospital. A Swedish man who had undergone eye surgery might stay in hospital for a few more days. The April 7th attack, together with bombs which in October struck Red Sea resorts, killing 34 people, appear to have had little impact on tourism, which earned $6.6 billion in 2004. The U.S. Embassy said Americans should avoid tourist areas until the embassy could make an assessment of the security situation. 2 Islamist groups have claimed responsibility for the attacks in internet statements.
The Employment and Job Training Fair of 2005 was held recently in Damascus, welcoming a large number of university graduates and students. This fair comes at a time when Syria needs at least $2 billion annually to absorb nearly 200,000 people into the labor market.
Like other developing countries, Syria suffers from the problem of unemployment, where it is estimated that 800,000 people are without work. This number is expected to rise with the return of Syrian workers from Lebanon as a result of the recent events there.
Of course, we are all suffering, even myself. This is not the first time that I applied for a job. I applied many times. They tell me to give them my CV. I leave it for them and nobody calls me back.
The problem of unemployment is mainly among the university students. Official statistics show that 7% of the labor force are university and college students. Meanwhile, those who hold high school degrees make up 66% of the unemployment. To solve the problem, the government created an agency to eliminate unemployment, and it reopened unemployment offices. But these measures have not solved the problem. In the past few years, legislators started making laws encouraging workers to take early retirement, except for college and university graduates.
There are many people with skills, expertise, and university degrees, young Syrian men and women who really need an opportunity to work. We're trying to take this chance and be a mediator between companies that have job openings and young workers who have the skills and expertise that is needed.
With the goal of providing job opportunities for people with college and university degrees, Damascus recently hosted an employment and job training fair with 42 private Syrian, Arab, and international companies. The fair, which welcomed a large number of university students, offered a chance for young Syrians and hope for them to find work within their fields of study.
This is a positive step for young adults to find work at a time when they are not finding any work, and at the most important time for them, when they are graduating from the university.
First, this fair aims to act as a mediator between companies with job vacancies and people who are looking for work. A second benefit from the fair are the training seminars taking place on the side, which aim at increasing the skills and expertise of young Syrians on how to apply for jobs.
With Syria's deteriorating problem of unemployment, the question remains, will this crisis find a solution, especially with the recent increase of private companies in the region?
In Iraq, the life in the marsh area in the south is beginning to return to normal after suffering under the former Iraqi regime, which drained this area of water to punish the residents for opposing Saddam Hussein. The marsh area in southern Iraq, which is called the Garden of Eden, the original site where the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers meet, the homeland of the Arab marsh people for at least 5,000 years. It is also called the Venice of Iraq because of its beautiful nature, which looks like a paradise that everyone dreams about and enchants whoever passes by the area and looks at the creeks, which are called the Gawahin. The marsh area was subjected to a draining operation that lasted more than 10 years to punish the residents for opposing the former regime in 1984. Then came the Marsh Uprising in 1991. The residents were involved in the wide-scale uprising, which the Iraqi regime responded to with brutality. Then he punished the people by drying the marshes, which continued for 10 years and included the Basra, Misyan, and Thikar provinces. Because of this, Iraq lost an important economic resource that was represented by the rich animal life, fish and birds. Thus, the marshes were transformed into an empty desert. A number of humanitarian organizations said that what happened there was a humanitarian and a natural catastrophe. After the fall of the Iraqi regime in April 2003, the river branches which supplied the marshes began to open up. Now the water covers 20% of the dry marshes. The wildlife returned to 60% of what it used to be. Water returned to its regular path, and the land began to produce vegetation in some areas, including the ones that could be described as a desert and dry lands.
The views expressed on Mosaic are not those of Link TV or its sponsors, but of the broadcasters themselves. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, which promotes journalism excellence worldwide and invests in the vitality of 26 U.S. communities, and the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation and Henry and Virgilia Dakin.